Well, I'm back. I'm not 100%, I don't think. I have picked up what I believe to be flu A, and man, do I feel bad, but I wanted to get back into the thick of things and start making some videos. So, the first one I want to talk about is something that came up in a comment. Let's take a look at that here in just a second.
Here's what we're talking about today.
In many ways, one of the things that makes this channel better is when people post comments and express information that helps me to figure out where I may have missed the boat. And by the way, there will probably be a lot of jump cuts in this video because about every 15 seconds, I'm going to have to stop and cough up half of the lung. Rather than put you through that, I'm cutting that part out, obviously. But one of the things that happened is I got this comment. It was a lovely comment. Let me read it to you. This was so good. I am a nurse expert witness, pediatric ER specifically, and I've done many depositions. Sometimes I find myself elaborating on their questions because I'm trying to explain the medical terminology and what it means. I don't know if I should stop doing this, but I feel that they are not understanding some key facts because of our medical language. And so, as you can see, I told her I needed to do a video about that, and that's what this is all about. This is probably not going to be as long as many of the videos I've done, but I wanted to get this topic in because, again, I think it says something about good people and bad people. And in this case, the good person is this nurse who is the expert who wants to try to help, and the bad person is the lawyer who acts like he needs help. First of all, although he may act clueless when he's doing a deposition, I'm sure you've all seen episodes of Columbo where I don't understand what you're talking about. I mean, can you explain that a little better? That kind of thing. And, that works for him on the show because people will always wind up, revealing the fact that they killed him, in the kitchen with a butcher knife or whatever. But in a deposition, this playing stupid routine will often wind up getting you a lot more information that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise if you'd ask questions. If you just pretend to be puzzled and act like you don't understand what they're talking about, you can hope that they'll come along and slip up and say something that actually helps you. Most lawyers, when they get ready to do a deposition, whether it's in healthcare or maybe construction, perhaps product defect, all of that, they will know as much about the subject as they can learn from online sources and the treatises that cover those areas. For example, their Tabor's Medical Encyclopedia, they will have looked up every term. They'll know every term that is in the case, and they will understand what that means. And the reason they do that is because they want to know more than the person that they're deposing so that hopefully they can trip them up. Just as I demonstrated in the other video on depositions, how lawyers will sit there and go, uh, can you, and then ask half of a question. People will often fill in the blanks of silence with additional words, additional testimony, something to try and make it more clear for this poor, clueless person who's asking them questions and doesn't understand even what the subject is. They do that for a reason. And as I said, usually it's because they're looking to get you to say something that doesn't completely jive with the facts or with what they understand the issue to be. The reason you should not expand on your opinion is very simple, really. The first reason is that the longer you talk, the more you will be talking. If you go about, well, let's take something that I know a little something about, oxygen, and you get a question about an oxygen saturation, maybe from a pulse oximeter, and the person says, "Well, 90 sounds pretty good. I don't understand why you're upset because there's a saturation of 90%. I mean, you only have 10% to go. What's the big deal here?" And of course, lay people who don't understand how oximeters work don't understand that there is a very narrow range at the top for where good people get their oxygen saturation, and it's between about 94% and 98%. And of course, if you put somebody on oxygen, that's going to go up. But that apparently clueless question, like, gee, 90 doesn't seem like it's that bad, resonates with a jury, right? Because juries understand that 90 on a test is a pretty good score. So obviously 90 on this test has to be pretty good because it's a percentage. And because it's a percentage, well, you know that it's sort of an absolute. You can't go higher than 100%. And if you explain it additionally and go on and explain all of the reasons why that is, and you get into things like the oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve and all these other things that are hyper technical, and I'm not going to explain all of that to you. I'm just saying those are things that people who are good experts would know and they would offer up. You give him a lot more information than he ever had a right to receive. You have to make him ask their question. So when someone says, "Gee, 90% doesn't sound all that bad. How come you think it's bad?" The proper answer is to say, "I don't understand what you mean by bad, because I'm talking about a value from an oximeter, and you seem to be talking about something else. Please make your question more specific or index it to this patient." And the reason that you do that is because if we're talking about 90% saturation at 3 o'clock that doesn't get addressed for 5 or 6 hours, that's a big difference between that situation and a situation where he's got a 90% saturation for 2 or 3 seconds. And all of these things are the kinds of things that experts know. And basically, what I'm trying to explain is you have a lot more knowledge and a lot deeper knowledge than the lawyer asking you questions. And while it is normal to want to help someone, you have to understand that when you do, that information is going to come back at you later on. And if you unthinkingly say, "Well, yeah, 90% is a pretty good value on a test," because it is a pretty good value. If you were taking your boards and you got 90%, you'd probably be pretty happy. But if you have a situation where you're looking at an oxygen saturation, 90% is equivalent to a partial pressure of oxygen of about 60, and normal is, like I said, up around 94, 95%. And again, depending on whether or not you have other things going on. So when you're testifying as an expert witness, essentially, if someone was out in the yard and they were picking up rocks and throwing them at your child, you wouldn't go outside and pick up the rocks that had been thrown that missed him and walk over and hand them to the kid that was throwing rocks at your kid. You would probably tell the kid to, get off your lawn or whatever it is. What you're doing when you give additional information is you're giving additional rocks to the other side that ultimately will be thrown back at you when you appear at trial. And that's why you have to be really careful when you answer a question, because the question that's asked in the deposition, 90's not so bad, which is vague, is going to come back to you at trial when you testify that 90 was a problem here. And the lawyer on the other side will say, "I'm going to show you your deposition. You look right here and read this. Did you not say that 90 was not that bad?" And if you did, you're going to have to live with that. So at that point, when that happens, you have to explain, or have the lawyer who puts you up as an expert explain on redirect what happened and what you meant. And when you're explaining, you're losing. So the best thing to do is just not to get put in that situation. Make them ask a good question. And you can always say, "I don't understand your question. What question are you asking? Are you asking about 90 in the context of this case and this patient at this time, or 90 generally? And again, a good lawyer will be able to answer that question and will be able to frame another question that goes to the information that he wants. Now, keep in mind, I am not suggesting here in any respect that you hide information or that you keep them from knowing your ultimate opinion, because ideally, your opinion is going to be written out in a report that you've given the other lawyer. And he has that, and he's probably going to be using it to cross-examine you. So you don't want to hide anything that's your opinion. But when they ask a question that goes contrary to what you know and what you believe, and they pretend to not understand what's going on, for example, saying, I don't understand this difference between hypoxia and hypoxemia and all these other things. Can you explain the difference between that? Again, you can answer that question, but you have to get it indexed to either this patient or a normal 150 kilogram man or 150 kilogram woman. You have to do that because otherwise they are going to believe that you are talking about the patient in this case. Again, that's not ever a good situation to be in. So again, it's just so important to answer only the question that's asked, to not interpret the question broadly, to interpret the question very narrowly, and to not help them out, even if they appear to be struggling. If they say things like, I don't understand, I don't understand your opinion, you're going to have to explain it to me better. You can, that's, I guess, the time you could be really snarky and say, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. The long and short of it is, people often act in depositions like they don't understand because they don't like the opinion. They don't have to like the opinion. It's your opinion. And as an expert witness, your opinion is evidence. It's not like a crime scene photograph or a knife that has been recovered from a crime scene, but it is evidence. It's testimonial evidence that has weight with the jury. And so, again, you have to remember to keep it as pristine as possible and as tied directly to the incidents in the case that you're involved in, so that you don't wander off on a frolic and a detour and wind up getting tripped up at trial with something that you said during the deposition.
Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here today. If you have the opportunity today, try to do one kind thing to help somebody else. Any kind thing will do. Buy somebody a Coke, get them a cup of coffee, anything that makes their day better. That would be a way to help make the world a better place. Because after all, isn't that what we're all after? Now, YouTube has a few things that they think you might be interested in, and they're going to be showing you that right up there.